Clara always made my coffee. It was our little ritual. Every morning before work, I'd sit at the dining table, scrolling through emails while she hummed in the kitchen. Then she'd set the cup in front of me, always just the way I liked it. 1 lump of sugar. Never 2. I'm not a control freak or anything, but I have this weird sensitivity to sweetness in coffee. Too much and it tastes like syrup to me. Clara knew that. She always knew things like that. What shirt I like to wear on Mondays. That I don't talk before 9 a.m. That I hate the sound of metal scraping on ceramic. Little, stupid details that made me think, God, I hit the jackpot. She noticed me. She saw me. Or at least, I thought she did. We've been married 7 years. Together for 9. No kids. Just us, the house, and an unspoken agreement that we were in this for the long haul. But something changed this year. It started small. She stopped humming in the kitchen. Stopped asking me about my day. Started taking calls in the other room more often. I'm not the jealous type. I've never been the guy who checks phones or stalks locations. Hell, I trusted her more than I trusted my own instincts. But there were signs. The kind you only notice when your gut whispers something's off, and you're too afraid to listen. Like the way she started wearing perfume to go grocery shopping. Or how her phone was always on silent, screen flipped down. Or how she'd laugh at texts but wouldn't show me what was so funny anymore. Then there was the night she came home late and said, work ran long. She works as a freelance graphic designer. From home. I didn't question it at the time. I just smiled and said, okay, because I wanted it to be okay. But it wasn't. I see that now. Hindsight is a cruel, sharp thing. The crack that finally shattered everything came during a quiet Tuesday morning. Same as any other. Coffee. Email. Rain outside. Except this time, 2 lumps of sugar. Just enough to make me wince. I sipped, paused, blinked. Why does the flavor taste so familiar? I asked. She was halfway to the sink, but when I said it, she froze. Not like oops I made a mistake. No, this was different. Her body tensed. Her hand hovered midair. And her smile, God, her smile, it didn't move. It just froze. Because that phrase, why does the flavor taste so familiar? Was what I'd said the night we met. Back in college. She had brought me this mystery drink at a party, some ridiculous fruity vodka thing, and I took a sip and said those exact words. She'd laughed. Said, maybe we've met before in another life. That was our thing. The kind of memory only 2 people in love remember. But I never told her that was why I remembered it. Not once. Not out loud. So how the hell did she know? I looked at her then. Really looked. And for the first time in years, I didn't see Clara, my wife. I saw someone hiding something. Someone rehearsing a role. And that night, I followed the silence up to the attic. That's where I found the diary. And that is where everything began to unravel. I don't even know what made me go up there. The attic was dusty and cramped, filled with boxes of Christmas junk, old yearbooks, and that one treadmill we swore we'd use someday. Clara hadn't been up there in months, or so I thought. But something about the way she froze that morning, the look in her eyes, it gnawed at me. Like she'd practiced that scene before. Like my reaction had been expected. There's this wooden chest in the corner, tucked behind my high school hockey gear. We inherited it from Clara's grandmother after she passed, and Clara always told me it was just keepsakes. I'd never bothered to open it before. This time, I did. Inside, a leather-bound journal, worn around the edges. No lock. No name. Just this feeling, this pulse, like it was waiting for me. I opened it. At first, I thought it was mine. The handwriting looked eerily similar to mine. The thoughts? The language? Almost too familiar. But the more I read, the more disturbing it got. Page after page detailing my thoughts, my actions, my dreams. Dates. Events. Conversations I didn't even remember having, until I read them. Stuff like: July 16th, he stared out the window for a long time this morning. Said he missed the smell of his grandfather's garden. Note to self, find a cologne that smells like jasmine and tomato leaves. October 9th, he almost cried during the documentary about abandoned dogs. He blinked it away fast, but I saw it. I don't think he remembers I was in the room. There were entries from years ago. Stuff I barely remembered about myself. Things I'd never even said aloud. How the hell did she know all this? Then I flipped to the last page. Add 2 lumps of sugar tomorrow. If he remembers, he will wake up. That was it. No signature. No context. Just that final line. My hands were shaking. It felt like my mind was shaking. Was this some kind of test? A psychological experiment? Did she write this to gaslight me? To see how far she could push me before I cracked? I stormed downstairs, journal in hand. She was on the couch, watching one of those mindless dating reality shows. Legs crossed, wine glass in hand, like nothing had happened. I didn't say anything. Just held the journal out. She didn't flinch. Didn't even blink. Instead, she looked up at me, sipped her wine, and said, "So you found it." Just like that. No apology. No denial. Just calm acknowledgement. Like she'd been waiting for me to find it. That was the moment the world tilted. Not because she admitted anything, she didn't. But because I realized this wasn't just about cheating. This was something else. Something way deeper. I sat down across from her, diary in hand, heart pounding. "What is this, Clara?" She smiled. That same frozen smile from that morning. Isn't it obvious? No, it wasn't. Not yet. But I was about to find out. I know I sound crazy already. Trust me, I feel crazy. But I swear to God, nothing could have prepared me for what came next. So there we were. Me with her diary in my hands. Her sitting there like some smug villain from a low-budget thriller. She didn't even reach for it. She just said, "Isn't it obvious?" "No," I said. "It's not." "What the hell is this, Clara? Are you spying on me? What is this weird performance? Some mind game?" She gave this little shrug. "It's not spying if I live with you." That sentence made something snap in me. Because that's the kind of thing you say when you know you've been caught, but you don't care. It was arrogant. Cold. I stood there waiting, hoping she'd follow up with, "I'm sorry," or "I can explain," or anything remotely human. Instead, she said, "You weren't supposed to find it yet." Why not? Her eyes narrowed, and for a second, I swear, she looked disappointed. Like I had broken some sacred rule. She sighed and said, "Because you're not ready." I almost laughed. Not ready for what? She took another sip of wine and looked at the TV again, like I was just background noise. And then she said it. "You were never supposed to be aware. It ruins the process." The process? I dropped the diary on the coffee table and sat down slowly. "Are you high?" She just smiled and kept sipping. So I asked the question I had been avoiding for weeks now. "Are you cheating on me?" And that's when the mask finally cracked. Her smile dropped, and she turned her full attention to me for the first time that day. "Define cheating," she said. "What?" I laughed. "You know exactly what I mean." She tilted her head, that little fake innocent gesture she uses when she wants to manipulate a conversation. I mean, if I'm meeting someone for coffee and talking, that's not cheating. If I'm texting someone who makes me laugh, that's not cheating. Right? I stared at her. Are you sleeping with someone else? She paused. Then she had the audacity to smirk. Not recently. I think I blacked out for a second. My heart was pounding so hard I couldn't hear anything else in the room. Everything blurred. It was like a bomb went off in my chest, and all I could do was sit there. Who? I asked, my voice barely a whisper. She rolled her eyes. You don't know him. I didn't ask if I knew him. She stood up, brushed off her pants like this was just an annoying conversation she had to endure before dinner, and said, it doesn't matter now. It was part of the test. The what? The test. To see if you'd notice. If you'd wake up. She walked out of the room. Just, left me there. Alone with the silence, the journal, and 1,000 fragmented thoughts spiraling in my brain. I didn't sleep that night. I just reread every page of that damn diary. I was trying to find something, anything, that made it make sense. But it only raised more questions. Why was she chronicling my life like an outsider? Why did she write like she wasn't living it with me, but studying it? And what exactly was she testing? By morning, one thing was clear, she was playing some twisted game. And I had never even known I was a piece on the board. After that night, I couldn't look at Clara the same way. Something had shifted. It wasn't just the infidelity, it was the way she talked about it. Like it was an experiment. Like I was the subject of some twisted lab study and she was the smug scientist poking at me with a clipboard. But I couldn't stop thinking about what she said. It doesn't matter now. It was part of the test. So what, cheating was just a test? A phase? A puzzle piece in her larger plan? I had to know more. She stopped talking to me after that. Not in the, I'm guilty and ashamed, way. More like I was no longer relevant. She moved through the house like a ghost with perfect hair and a schedule I wasn't part of. No coffee in the morning. No questions about work. Just headphones, whispers on her phone, long showers, and this constant low-level tension that made me feel like a stranger in my own home. But I noticed she was always on her phone at 11:30 p.m. Always. Without fail. The same smirk on her face. Sometimes she'd even laugh under her breath. One night, I waited until she fell asleep. She never locked her phone, too cocky, I guess. I opened her texts. The name at the top. M. Just the letter. No emoji. No contact photo. Nothing. But the thread was full of flirtation. Half-coded messages, inside jokes I didn't understand. Screenshots of me doing things, pouring cereal, staring at the fridge, napping on the couch. And then messages like, he still doesn't see it. But the sugar trick almost worked. He asked the phrase. I nearly broke character. Tomorrow I'm going to start phase 2. And then there were pictures. One of them was a selfie. Clara in a hotel bathroom mirror. Wearing lingerie I'd never seen before. Lipstick smeared just enough to tell a story. The timestamp was from 3 weeks ago. On a Saturday she claimed to be working on a client's portfolio downtown. I scrolled down to a message from M. God, I love watching him fall apart in slow motion. You're perfect. I don't remember setting the phone down. I just remember going to the bathroom and throwing up. But I wasn't done. The next day, when Clara left for yoga, I followed her. She didn't go to yoga. She went to a little cafe downtown, one of those hipster spots with plants in mason jars and overpriced croissants. I sat in my car across the street and watched her sit down at a table facing the window. Then he walked in. Tall. Tan. Arrogant walk. He looked like every gym trainer who's ever called me, bro, with condescension. They didn't kiss, but they might as well have. Their body language screamed this is not the first meeting. She leaned into him like he was gravity itself. So I did something insane. I got out of the car and walked straight in. I don't know what I was planning. Honestly. I just wanted her to see me. To feel something. She didn't. When she looked up, there wasn't a flicker of guilt on her face. No panic. No shock. Just that damn smirk. Jonah, she said, calm as ever. This is Marcus. You weren't supposed to meet him. Marcus stood up, arms crossed, eyes assessing me like I was the trespasser. Like I was the fool who'd shown up uninvited to a private event. I didn't say anything. I just looked at her. She said it again. You weren't supposed to meet him. Not yet. That word again. Supposed. Like my life was a script I'd gone off book from. I turned around and walked out. I couldn't breathe in there. I sat in my car for 2 hours, trying to understand what the hell I was living through. I still don't have an answer. But I know now, this wasn't just cheating. This was manipulation on a level I didn't even know humans were capable of. After the cafe, I went home and locked the bedroom door. Clara didn't come home that night. She didn't even text. No apology. No excuse. Just silence. Like I was the one who had crossed a line. Like I had been the intruder. The next morning, I sat at the dining table staring at an empty mug, waiting for coffee that would never come. I kept thinking about Marcus. The way he looked at me, like he knew me. Not just knew of me, but knew things about me. Intimate things. And then it hit me. What if he did? I ran back upstairs and grabbed the diary again. This time I read slower. Not just scanning for red flags, actually studying it. Something had been nagging at me from the beginning, the tone of the entries wasn't just observational. It was almost curatorial. Like someone documenting a specimen. And then, halfway through, I found it. An entry from years ago. Way before any of this started. He talks in his sleep. Last night, he said the name, Olive, 3 times. I asked him about it in the morning, and he didn't remember. But it rattled him. He said he hadn't thought of his childhood neighbor in decades. Bingo. I froze. Olive. That was real. She was my neighbor when I was a kid. My best friend until her family moved away after a house fire. I haven't seen or spoken to her since I was 10. I'd buried that name so deep in my memory that even I had forgotten it. But Clara knew. I never told her that story. Never once. So how the hell was it in her diary? I flipped to another entry. He cried on the porch when he saw the yellow tulips. I told him I picked them because they matched the throw pillows. He doesn't know they were Olive's favorite. Let's see how long I can keep pulling strings like that. Another. Found the photo of him and Olive in his mom's old album. Scanned it while he was in the shower. He hasn't seen it since he was 11. I'm planting it under his socks next week, should stir something. My heart was thudding so hard I could barely read. This wasn't just about cheating. She was mining my past. Pulling pieces of my childhood, manipulating memories I didn't even know I still had. And all with the same cold, clinical distance. But it gets worse. Because about 10 pages later, I found this. Jonah always thought his dad's car accident was just bad luck. I've hinted enough now, he's starting to wonder. But he won't ask. He never asks. I froze. My dad died when I was 14. I watched his car flip on a rain-slick road coming back from my soccer game. It's something I don't talk about. Something I still haven't healed from. And here she was, writing about it like it was just another plot thread in her twisted experiment. That's when the rage hit me. I stormed into her office, where she kept her client files, her laptop, her backup drives. Everything was organized too perfectly. Like she never expected I'd go snooping. I found a folder on her desktop labeled Echo_project. Inside, dozens of video files. Some were security cam footage from inside our home. Some were screen recordings of my phone screen, texts, calls, even voice memos I didn't know I'd made. There was one of me sleep-talking. One of me crying in the shower. One from 6 months ago where I was sitting on the porch, talking to myself about missing my dad. And then I saw it. A file labeled session_041, Clara plus M debrief. I clicked it. It was her. Sitting on our bed. Talking to Marcus like he was her handler. He's starting to suspect. The sugar line worked. The olive memory triggered the emotional tremors we predicted. I'd say we're about 80% to the break point. Break point. Marcus off camera, and after that? Clara smiled. After that, we observe the collapse. He either disconnects or digs. Either way, we get what we need. I slammed the laptop shut. I didn't know whether to scream, cry, or throw up again. My wife wasn't just cheating on me. She was studying me. Deconstructing me. Like I was some AI she was beta testing before a public release. And the worst part? I still didn't know why. If you've read the first 5 parts, you already know things have been spiraling, fast. But nothing, prepared me for what I found next. After watching that video, Clara and Marcus calmly discussing my mental break point like I was a malfunctioning robot, I couldn't sit still. My body felt like it didn't belong to me anymore. I kept pacing the house like it could somehow answer all the questions burning in my brain. Why me? Why this level of manipulation? What the hell were they trying to find? I was in Clara's office when I noticed it. A scuff on the hardwood beneath the bookshelf. Now, this might sound dramatic, but our bookshelf was built into the wall. Solid oak. Looked like it hadn't been moved in years. But the scrape was fresh, lighter than the rest of the floor. Something had recently shifted. I stared at it for a minute. Then, on instinct, I pulled on the shelf. Nothing. Then I pushed on the left side. Click. A soft mechanical sound. I swear I stopped breathing. The shelf creaked, then slowly popped forward, just a few inches. Like it was waiting for me. Behind it? A narrow, dark hallway. Not a full room, just a passage maybe 5 feet deep, lit faintly by a single old desk lamp. It smelled like dust, wires, and something sterile. Chemical. Like a lab or a data center. I stepped inside. There was a folding chair. A small table. A wall completely lined with corkboard, wires, photos, and sticky notes. And on the far side, another laptop. Still on. Still logged in. The screen had a paused video file. I hit play. It was me. Me, crying in bed. Rocking back and forth. Talking to someone who wasn't there. The timestamp? 2 weeks ago. I don't remember doing that. Then I noticed something even worse, the wall. Dozens of photos of me. Different angles. Different lighting. Some from inside the house. Some I swear were from work. Even one of me as a teenager, taken through a window, based on the angle and blur. Underneath, handwritten notes. Like a character profile. With terrifying precision. Subject, Jonah Thomas, primary profile age, 36 traits, empathetic, introspective, risk-averse, unaware triggers, sugar, 2x, childhood reference, olive, father's death, car accident, goal, emotional rupture, memory disorientation, internal collapse status, awakening process initiated. There were timelines. Charts of emotional behavior. Graphs showing spikes after each trigger event. Labels like Phase 1 complete and Phase 2 dependent on sugar/cafe disruption. I backed up. My skin was crawling. My ears were ringing. I could barely think. That's when I saw it. A single Polaroid. Thumbtacked in the center of the board. It was Clara and Marcus. Standing in front of the cafe. Smiling. Holding a sign that read, Echo Project, Cycle 4, Jonah activated. I ripped it off the wall. Underneath the photo, written in marker. He remembers the sugar. Proceed. I stumbled out of the hidden room like I'd just been punched in the skull. Nothing made sense anymore. This wasn't cheating. This wasn't even manipulation. This was design. Who were these people? Why me? And how long had I been part of something I didn't consent to? I sat on the floor outside that secret door and stared at my shaking hands for over an hour. I wish I could say I called the cops. Or ran. Or confronted her right away. But I didn't. I just sat there, overwhelmed by the terrifying realization that I didn't know my wife. Not even a little. I waited until she came home. It was nearly midnight. She walked in like nothing was wrong, tossed her keys in the bowl, hung up her coat, and kicked off her shoes with that little sigh she always made. Like she was just tired of the world. I used to think it was kind of endearing. Now it just sounded fake. She stopped when she saw me sitting at the kitchen table. The Polaroid was in front of me. The one that said Echo Project, Cycle 4, Jonah activated. I didn't speak. Just looked at her. She stared at the photo. Then met my eyes. No guilt. No panic. Just resignation. Ah, she said softly. So you found the room. I didn't ask how she knew. I just said. What the F** is this, Clara? She pulled out the chair across from me and sat down, slow and casual like we were having a normal conversation about bills or takeout. You weren't supposed to go looking, she said, brushing a strand of hair behind her ear. But I guess that was naive of me. Start talking. She looked at me. Really looked. And then, she laughed. Not hysterically. Not maniacally. Just this soft, condescending laugh like I was a child asking how the moon works. I told you, Jonah. You were never supposed to meet Marcus. You weren't supposed to remember the sugar line. You weren't supposed to dig this deep. I stood up, furious. What are you talking about? What is the Echo Project? Are you working for someone? Is this some kind of cult? Surveillance op? Psychological warfare? She tilted her head. It's none of those. Not exactly. She paused. Looked out the window like she was trying to find the right metaphor. Have you ever heard of behavioral echoing? I didn't answer. It's the idea that you can stimulate a person's mind by reintroducing subtle triggers from their past, smells, phrases, forgotten faces, and it causes ripples. Echoes. If timed correctly, and layered properly, it creates rupture. The illusion shatters. I blinked. Are you seriously saying this was a psych experiment? You used our marriage for data collection? Her lips twitched, like she almost smiled. We weren't married, Jonah. You were married. I was studying. Silence. I swear, it got colder in the room. You're insane, I whispered. No, she said calmly. I'm trained. My throat was dry. So what? I was just, target practice. She finally looked guilty. Not remorseful. Just guilty, like she'd revealed too much. I chose you because you were ideal. Emotional, repressed, highly observant but desperate for connection. You needed someone to see you. To notice your little habits. That made you responsive. My whole body started to shake. Was any of it real? I asked. That was the only question I cared about in that moment. The only thread of hope I had left. She hesitated. Then she looked me in the eye and said, "No. But it was necessary." That was it. The last crack. My mind just shut down. There was nothing left to say. I grabbed my coat. Took the Polaroid. The diary. The flash drive I'd stolen from the hidden room earlier. And I walked out. She didn't follow. She didn't even ask where I was going. Because in her mind, that chapter was done. I had served my purpose. And now I was just another subject crossing a threshold. So, yeah. I left. I didn't take clothes. I didn't take my laptop. I didn't even take my toothbrush. Just my wallet, my car keys, Clara's diary, the Polaroid photo, and a flash drive I yanked from her hidden laptop on my way out. I didn't know where I was going yet, I just had to get out of that house. I crashed at my brother's place that night. Didn't say much to him except, "It's bad. I'll explain later." I think he knew better than to press. But the next morning, I started unraveling what I did have. I plugged the flash drive into his old computer. Password-protected folder, echo logs. Password was familiar. Real subtle, Clara. Inside were video files. Dozens. Logs. Emails. Session transcripts labeled with my name and numbered like I was an inmate. I saw words like asterisk, emotional breach successful. Asterisk, denial pattern observed. Asterisk, phase 3 postponed, subject 2 reactive. Then I found a folder labeled therapist inquiries. That got my blood running cold. She'd been contacting therapists, under my name. Faking email threads. Asking about symptoms of derealization, trauma reactivation protocols, and whether a person could be covertly monitored during exposure therapy. I printed everything I could. Dozens of pages. I felt insane doing it, but it all seemed too calculated, too structured to ignore. So I made an appointment with a real therapist. Dr. Rachel Mencken. Not someone Clara would have known, someone through my brother's insurance. When I dumped everything out on her desk, photos, diary, transcripts, timelines, even the sugar packet from that damn morning, she didn't blink. She read silently for what felt like 20 minutes. Then she looked at me and said, "You are not crazy. What happened to you is real. And this is abuse." I broke down crying. Because finally, someone saw it for what it was. Not cheating. Not emotional neglect. But psychological abuse. Weaponized intimacy. Clinical-grade gaslighting. Dr. Mencken said what Clara did fit the definition of coercive control. She'd never seen anything quite like this outside of military psychological operations or cult deprogramming. "You were never in a relationship," she said. "You were inside a simulation." I asked what to do next. Her answer was clear: document it. Then go to the police. So I did. The next day, I brought everything to the local precinct. I asked to speak to someone in cybercrimes and psychological abuse. They didn't know what to make of it at first. Hell, I barely did. But once I showed them the video of Clara and Marcus talking about me like a test subject, the tone changed. They took my statement. Made copies of the drive. Took the diary into evidence. An officer even said, "This sounds like something out of a Black Mirror episode." They said they couldn't arrest anyone yet, but they'd start a formal investigation. Especially into whether Clara had broken any laws regarding digital surveillance, data collection, or identity fraud. I asked if they'd heard of anything like Echo Project before. They hadn't. But they promised to look into it. So that's where I'm at now. Living out of a suitcase. Sleeping on my brother's couch. Watching the investigation crawl forward like molasses while trying to piece myself back together in therapy twice a week. And the worst part? Clara still hasn't called me. No, where are you? No, we need to talk. Nothing. Like she's already moved on to the next subject. I've been in therapy for 3 weeks now. Still sleeping on my brother's lumpy couch. Still having nightmares about sugar and voices whispering, if he remembers, he will wake up. The cops haven't told me much. Just that they're reviewing the data and following up with relevant parties. But let's be real, unless I'm bleeding or missing, this case probably isn't high on their priority list. So I started doing my own digging. And that's when I realized I had overlooked something huge: Marcus. Who was he really? All I knew was a name. No last name. No social media. No digital footprint. He wasn't on Clara's contact list under any full name, just M. It was like he didn't exist. Until I remembered something from that day at the cafe. He had worn a jacket with a weird embroidered logo on the shoulder. I'd brushed it off at the time, but now I couldn't get it out of my head. So I posted a blurry freeze frame from the cafe's security footage. Yeah, turns out my brother's friend works at the place, long story, on a tech forum asking for help identifying the logo. It took less than 24 hours. Someone replied. That's an old insignia from the Orbis Cognition Lab, used to be affiliated with a DARPA-funded human behavior project before they went private. My stomach dropped. I googled them. Nothing recent. Most articles dated back at least 8 to 10 years, referencing military contracts, behavioral conditioning trials, and something called adaptive stimulus looping. Their website was offline. Their last recorded address was a P.O. box in Massachusetts. But here's the kicker. I dug deeper into archived versions of their site. And I found a staff page. And there he was. Marcus D. Langford, Lead Specialist, Behavioral Echo Induction Unit. Holy. *T. He wasn't just some sleazy affair partner. He was the architect of this entire goddamn thing. The handler. Probably Clara's supervisor. This wasn't just cheating. This was a program. A calculated, strategic simulation designed to see how much of a man's identity, memory, and emotional response could be manipulated through emotional familiarity and controlled trauma. And I was their experiment. I confronted my therapist with everything. She was stunned. Said this went way beyond domestic abuse. That if what I found was accurate, I might have grounds for a federal investigation. So I went back to the cops. Brought them the evidence. Told them who Marcus really was. Their reaction? Shock. Confusion. Skepticism. One of them asked, "Are you sure this isn't a scam or an elaborate prank?" I showed them the diary. The Echo Project footage. The logs. The DARPA mentions. They promised to escalate it. But I could tell even they didn't know how to handle something like this. And Clara? Still radio silent. But here's the thing, I don't think she's ghosting me. I think she's done. I was cycle 4. They probably have a cycle 5 by now. Another guy sipping coffee, not knowing he's being dissected from the inside out. I want justice. I want Clara and Marcus behind bars. I want this Echo Project dismantled before it destroys anyone else. But I've also accepted something painful. I was never loved. I was studied. I almost didn't open the diary again. After everything, finding the hidden room, uncovering Marcus's identity, reporting Clara to the police. I thought I had scraped out every rotten secret from the festering mess they left behind. But a few nights ago, I couldn't sleep. My mind kept buzzing with the same question on repeat. Why me? So I did what I hadn't done since I found it. I flipped to the very last page of Clara's diary. I thought I had already seen the final entry: add 2 lumps of sugar tomorrow. If he remembers, he will wake up. But it turns out, that wasn't the end. There was one more page. Written in a different pen. The ink slightly fresher. Dated the day I left. And it said this. Jonah, if you're reading this, it means you went further than expected. You weren't supposed to find the flash drive. Or Marcus. Or the room. But you did. Which means you were more than a subject. You were the first one to break the loop. I didn't lie about everything. The smiles weren't always fake. The way I curled into your side after a nightmare. That wasn't scripted. I wasn't supposed to care. But you made it hard not to. I told them I could finish the cycle. That I could keep my distance. I was wrong. That's why I won't fight you if you take this public. You earned your freedom. I hope, one day, you find someone real. See, cycle 4 complete, test subject disengaged. I sat there for a long time. Reading it over and over. I wanted to scream. To punch a wall. To burn the house down. But instead, I cried. Because it wasn't an apology. Not really. It was a confession disguised as closure. It was her final experiment, to see if knowing she felt something would change how I saw her. And it almost did. Almost. But you can't, almost, love someone who used your trauma as a whiteboard. You can't, almost, forgive someone who puppeteered your memories for fun. So here I am. The case is still open. The local cops handed it off to a federal cybercrime task force. I've given interviews. Signed NDAs I later regretted. Even had someone approach me claiming to be from a whistleblower advocacy group. Apparently, I'm not the only one. There were other cycles. Other subjects. And not all of them walked away as intact as I did. Some were hospitalized. One went missing. And me? I'm surviving. One therapy session at a time. One day at a time. Relearning who I am without Clara's scripting. Without second-guessing every word that comes out of my mouth. I deleted every photo of her. Every email. Every playlist we made. Every movie she loved that was probably part of the script. Except the diary. I kept that. Not because I want to remember her. But because I want to remember me. The version of me that fought back. The version that woke up. Final thoughts and advice. If you're reading this because something feels off in your relationship, listen to your gut. Love shouldn't feel like surveillance. If someone notices everything but never really hears you, never really feels with you, step back. Ask yourself, is this love? Or is this control disguised as care? And if they ever give you 2 lumps of sugar instead of 1, don't drink the coffee.